What's up guys, it's the Actual Justice Warrior here, and today we're going to talk about ESPN. Alright, but first things first, I have a second channel. It's my media channel. Subscribe to it. It's awesome. I only have 18 subscribers on there. What are you guys doing? And so far for my Patreon, I'm only getting $2 a month. So the media is reporting that ESPN held a slave auction on their network. The media is reporting that only white men decided to do a segment where they purchased black people in an auction in order to normalize slave auction. Now the reason I say the media is reporting that this happened is because the reports are complete fabricated bullshit. What actually happened is that ESPN was doing a fantasy sports segment. ESPN does a lot of fantasy sports segments because fantasy sports is really popular in the United States. I have no fucking clue why, because essentially what you're doing is taking a sport, an athletic competition, and reducing it down to a mathematical equation. But I guess this just means that there's more crossover between sports fans and math nerds than I thought there was. Now, when you're building a fantasy team, you can do it a number of ways. The first way is a draft. Basically, every person in your fantasy league gets randomized into a different order, and one by one, you get to pick your fantasy players. The other way to pick players is through an auction. Because the NFL has a salary cap and they're only allowed to spend a certain amount of money on players, fantasy team owners are also given a salary cap and they're only allowed to spend a certain amount of money on players. So what I'm told is that the auction element adds something to the fantasy sports league. It's not really about random chance anymore, it's how you would spend a fixed sum of money. So because fantasy auction leagues are becoming more and more popular, ESPN did a fantasy auction segment to accompany their fantasy football coverage. Now I know what you're thinking, maybe ESPN did it in such a way that only black players were on the chopping block. And if you're thinking that, you'd be dead fucking wrong. The way that ESPN did this was position by position. Now, of course, the NFL is a majority black league, and if you're going to build a fantasy team that has the best players, chances are you're going to have mostly black players because the NFL is a mostly black league. So these articles use segments about running back and wide receiver to show that white people were buying black people and it was somehow mirroring slavery. However, what they omitted were other positions like quarterback or tight end. Because if you showed those segments, what you would see is quarterbacks like Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, or for tight end, Rob Gronkowski. And showing those players being auctioned in your race baiting story kind of undermines it. But hey, who cares? As long as we can falsely manufacture racism, facts be damned. Now this shit all started when known racist Shaun King tweeted out that ESPN must apologize now for doing this mock slave auction. And the reason I'm calling Shaun King a known racist is because if you genuinely looked at this and saw it as white people buying black people, you are a racist. It's not that you have racism on your mind, you're actually a racist, because the only thing you could see in this scenario was color. Seriously, nobody was actually being bought or sold. The reason these players were being auctioned off on TV is because they are the most popular players, because they are statistically the best at their position. There's nothing racist about calling Odell Beckham Jr. a really good wide receiver. And you know what's really insane about this? Is that anybody looking at this from an objective view would realize that the people claiming racism are absolutely fucking ridiculous in this scenario. But ESPN still issued an apology. And this is also yet another example of the left eating their own. Remember, ESPN is the network that gave Caitlyn Jenner the Hero of the Universe award. The year before that, they gave the same award to Michael Sam, who was the first gay NFL player, or the first openly gay NFL player. Even though he wasn't really good, and he got drafted in the 6th round, and I'm pretty sure he was cut during training camp. He still got an award for being a hero. ESPN has been on their knees sucking off Colin Kaepernick ever since he knelt for the national anthem. And a quick side note on that, if you don't want Colin Kaepernick on your team because he knelt for the national anthem, you can go fuck right off. If you don't want Colin Kaepernick on your team because he's not a very good NFL quarterback, totally fine with that. We cannot honestly say that we're against the left getting people fired for expressing conservative opinions when we support somebody being denied work because of his leftist opinions. That being said, Kaepernick is not a good NFL quarterback, so if you're not signing Kaepernick because he was statistically among the worst quarterbacks in the league last year, totally fine. But if you think he can help you win and the kneeling is the deciding factor, then fuck right off. So not only did ESPN apologize to actual racists, they also sold out their core audience, diehard sports fans, for social justice warriors. You're ESPN, you're supposed to be a fucking sports network, not a social justice network. I mean, seriously, you have to read some of these articles. It's fucking ridiculous. They make the claim that fantasy football is racist because the majority of people who play fantasy football are white males. Football is the most popular sport in America and America alone. The largest demographic in America is white people. For something to be the most popular thing in the country, it usually has to have a majority of white people backing it. But somehow that's racist because the NFL is a majority black league and white people like them. Seriously, that's literally what these articles are saying. Now I know the "this is why Trump won the election" thing is getting a little old, but this is actually one of the reasons why Trump won the election. I mean, seriously, if you look at the top reasons people voted for Trump, one of them is people feeling displaced in their own country. And of course, regressive leftists say that's code for racism and a fear of brown people. It's really not. I mean, think about it. The left-wing media manufactured racism where there was none. Then ESPN apologized despite them doing nothing wrong in this case. And now we have article after article saying that the reason why white people are fans of the NFL is because they're racist. I mean, seriously, if one side, one party is repeatedly attacking you for doing things that are normal, watching football, and claiming that that makes you racist, wouldn't you get pissed off? Wouldn't that make you sick of the liberal media? I mean, there would be one thing if there's any merit to it, but there's not. People like football. Anyway, that's all I really have for you guys today. If you like this video, then please show me by leaving a like. If you want to join the conversation, leave a comment below. And you can support me for as little as $1 a day on Patreon. This has been the Actual Justice Warrior. Till next time.